She stood up and walked around the table and embraced me. Her eyes were clear and restful. I knew she bore no malice toward me. "It's our fate that you are plugged up like this," she said. "But you're still the Nagwell to us. I won't hinder you with ugly thoughts. You can at least be assured of that." I knew that she meant it. She was speaking to me from a level that I had witnessed only in Don Juan. She had repeatedly explained her mood as the product of having lost her human form. She was indeed a formless warrior. A wave of profound affection for her enveloped me. I was about to weep. It was at the instant that I felt she was a most marvelous warrior that quite an intriguing thing happened to me. The closest way of describing it would be to say that I felt that my ears had suddenly popped. Except that I felt the popping in the middle of my body, right below my navel, more acutely than in my ears. Right after the popping everything became clearer, sounds, sights, odors. Then I felt an intense buzzing, which oddly enough did not interfere with my hearing capacity. The buzzing was loud but did not drown out any other sounds. It was as if I were hearing the buzzing with some part of me other than my ears. A hot flash went through my body. And then I suddenly recalled something I had never seen. It was as though an alien memory had taken possession of me. I remembered Lydia pulling herself from two horizontal, reddish ropes as she walked on the wall. She was not really walking, she was actually gliding on a thick bundle of lines that she held with her feet. I remembered seeing her panting with her mouth open, from the exertion of pulling the reddish ropes. The reason I could not hold my balance at the end of her display was because I was seeing her as a light that went around the room so fast that it made me dizzy. It pulled me from the area around my navel. I remembered Rosa's actions and Josefina's as well. Rosa had actually braccated, with her left arm holding onto long, vertical, reddish fibers that looked like vines dropping from the dark roof. With her right arm she was also holding some vertical fibers that seemed to give her stability. She also held on to the same fibers with her toes. Toward the end of her display she was like a phosphorescence on the roof. The lines of her body had been erased. Josefina was hiding herself behind some lines that seemed to come out of the floor. What she was doing with her raised forearm was moving the lines together to give them the necessary width to conceal her bulk. Her puffed-up clothes were a great prop, they had somehow contracted her luminosity. The clothes were bulky only for the eye that looked. At the end of her display Josefina, like Lydia and Rosa, was just a patch of light. I could switch from one recollection to the other in my mind. When I told them about my concurrent memories the little sisters looked at me bewildered. La Gorda was the only one who seemed to be following what was happening to me. She laughed with true delight and said that the Nagwell was right in saying that I was too lazy to remember what I had seen, therefore, I only bothered with what I had looked at. Is it possible, I thought to myself, that I am unconsciously selecting what I recall? Or is it La Gorda who is creating all this? If it was true that I had selected my recall at first and then released what I had censored, then it also had to be true that I must have perceived much more of Don Juan's and Don Gennaro's actions, and yet I could only recall a selective part of my total perception of those events. It's hard to believe, I said to La Gorda, that I can remember now something I didn't remember at all a while ago. The Nagwell said that everyone can see, and yet we choose not to remember what we see, she said. Now I understand how right he was. All of us can see, some, more than others. I told La Gorda that some part of me knew that I had found then a transcendental key. A missing piece had been handed down to me by all of them. But it was difficult to discern what it was. She announced that she had just seen that I had practiced a good deal of dreaming, and that I had developed my attention, and yet I was fooled by my own appearance of not knowing anything. I've been trying to tell you about attention, she proceeded, but you know as much as we do about it. I assured her that my knowledge was intrinsically different from theirs was infinitely more spectacular than mine. Anything they might say to me in relation to their practices, therefore, was a bonus to me. The Nagwell told us to show you that with our attention we can hold the images of a dream in the same way we hold the images of the world, LaGuardia said. The art of the dreamer is the art of attention. Thoughts came down on me like a landslide. I had to stand up and walk around the kitchen. I sat down again. We remained quiet for a long time. I knew what she had meant when she said that the art of dreamers was the art of attention. I knew then that Don Juan had told me and showed me everything he could. I had not been able, however, to realize the premises of his knowledge in my body while he was around. He had said that my reason was the demon that kept me chained, and that I had to vanquish it if I wanted to achieve the realization of his teachings. The issue, therefore, had been how to vanquish my reason. It had never occurred to me to press him for a definition of what he meant by reason. I presumed all along that he meant the capacity for comprehending, inferring or thinking, in an orderly, rational way. From what LaGuardia had said, I knew that to him reason meant attention. Don Juan said that the core of our being was the act of perceiving, and that the magic of our being was the act of awareness. For him perception and awareness were a single, functional, inextricable unit, a unit which had two domains. The first one was the attention of the tonal, that is to say, the capacity of average people to perceive and place their awareness on the ordinary world of everyday life. Don Juan also called this form of attention our first ring of power, and described it as our awesome but taken for granted ability to impart order to our perception of our daily world. The second domain was the attention of the Nagwell, that is to say, the capacity of sorcerers to place their awareness on the non-ordinary world. He called this domain of attention the second ring of power, or the altogether portentous ability that all of us have, but only sorcerers use, to impart order to the non-ordinary world. LaGuardia and the Little Sisters, in demonstrating to me that the art of dreamers was to hold the images of their dreams with their attention, had brought in the pragmatic aspect of Don Juan's scheme. They were the practitioners who had gone beyond the theoretical aspect of his teachings. In order to give me a demonstration of that art, they had to make use of their second ring of power, or the attention of the Nagwell. In order for me to witness their art, I had to do the same. In fact, it was evident that I had placed my attention on both domains. Perhaps all of us are continually perceiving in both fashions but choose to isolate one for recollection and discard the other, or perhaps we file it away, as I myself had done. Under certain conditions of stress or acquiescence, the censored memory surfaces and we can then have two distinct memories of one event. What Don Juan had struggled to vanquish, or rather suppress in me, was not my reason as the capacity for rational thought, but my attention of the tonal, or my awareness of the world of common sense. His motive for wanting me to do so was explained by LaGuardia when she said that the daily world exists because we know how to hold its images. Consequently, if one drops the attention needed to maintain those images, the world collapses. The Nagwell told us that practice is what counts, LaGuardia said suddenly. Once you get your attention on the images of your dream, your attention is hooked for good. In the end you can be like Gennaro, who could hold the images of any dream. We each have 5 other dreams, Lydia said. But we showed you the first one because that was the dream the Nagwell gave us. Can all of you go into dreaming any time you want? I asked. No, LaGuardia replied. Dreaming takes too much power. None of us has that much power. The reason the Little Sisters had to roll on the floor so many times was that in rolling the earth was giving them energy. Maybe you could also remember seeing them as luminous beings getting energy from the light of the earth. The Nagwell said that the best way of getting energy is, of course, to let the sun inside the eyes, especially the left eye. I told her that I knew nothing about it, and she described a procedure that Don Juan had taught them. As she spoke I remembered that Don Juan had also taught the same procedure to me. It consisted in moving my head slowly from side to side as I caught the sunlight with my half-closed left eye. He said that one could not only use the sun but could use any kind of light that could shine on the eyes. La Gorda said that the Nagual had recommended that they tie their shawls below their waists in order to protect their hip bones when they rolled. I commented that Don Juan had never mentioned rolling to me. She said that only women could roll because they had wombs and energy came directly into their wombs. By rolling around they distributed that energy over the rest of their bodies. In order for a man to be energized he had to be on his back, with his knees bent so that the soles of his feet touched each other. His arms had to be extended laterally, with his forearms raised vertically, and the fingers clawed in an upright position. "We have been dreaming those dreams for years," Lydia said. "Those dreams are our best, because our attention is complete. In the other dreams that we have, our attention is still shaky." La Gorda said that holding the images of dreams was a Toltec art. After years of consuming practice each one of them was able to perform one act in any dream. Lydia could walk on anything, Rosa could dangle from anything, Josefina could hide behind anything, and she herself could fly. But they were only beginners, apprentices of the art. They had complete attention for only one activity. She added that Gennaro was the master of dreaming and could turn the tables around and have attention for as many activities as we have in our daily life, and that for him the two domains of attention had the same value. I felt compelled to ask them my usual question. I had to know their procedures, how they held the images of their dreams. "You know that as well as we do," La Gorda said. "The only thing I can say is that after going to the same dream over and over, we began to feel the lines of the world. They helped us to do what you saw us doing." Don Juan had said that our first ring of power is engaged very early in our lives and that we live under the impression that that is all there is to us. Our second ring of power, the attention of the Nagual, remains hidden for the immense majority of us, and only at the moment of our death is it revealed to us. There is a pathway to reach it, however, which is available to every one of us, but which only sorcerers take, and that pathway is through dreaming. Dreaming was in essence the transformation of ordinary dreams into affairs involving volition. Dreamers, by engaging their attention of the Nagual and focusing it on the items and events of their ordinary dreams, change those dreams into dreaming. Don Juan said that there were no procedures to arrive at the attention of the Nagual. He only gave me pointers. Finding my hands in my dreams was the first pointer, then the exercise of paying attention was elongated to finding objects, looking for specific features, such as buildings, streets and so on. From there the jump was to dreaming about specific places at specific times of the day. The final stage was drawing the attention of the Nagual to focus on the total self. Don Juan said that that final stage was usually ushered in by a dream that many of us have had at one time or another, in which one is looking at oneself sleeping in bed. By the time a sorcerer has had such a dream, his attention has been developed to such a degree that instead of waking himself up, as most of us would do in a similar situation, he turns on his heels and engages himself in activity, as if he were acting in the world of everyday life. From that moment on there is a breakage, a division of sorts in the otherwise unified personality. The result of engaging the attention of the Nagual and developing it to the height and sophistication of our daily attention of the world was, in Don Juan's scheme, the other self, an identical being as oneself, but made in dreaming. Don Juan had told me that there are no definite standard steps for teaching that double, as there are no definite steps for us to reach our daily awareness. We simply do it by practicing. He contended that in the act of engaging our attention of the Nagual, we would find the steps. He urged me to practice dreaming without letting my fears make it into an encumbering production. He had done the same with La Gorda and the Little Sisters, but obviously something in them had made them more receptive to the idea of another level of attention. Gennaro was in his body of dreaming most of the time, La Gorda said. He liked it better. That's why he could do the weirdest things and scare you half to death. Gennaro could go in and out of the crack between the worlds like you and I can go in and out a door. Don Juan had also talked to me at great length about the crack between the worlds. I had always believed that he was talking in a metaphorical sense about a subtle division between the world that the average man perceives and the world that sorcerers perceive. La Gorda and the Little Sisters had shown me that the crack between the worlds was more than a metaphor. It was rather the capacity to change levels of attention. One part of me understood La Gorda perfectly, while another part of me was more frightened than ever. "You have been asking where the Nagual and Genaro went," La Gorda said. "Soledad was very blunt and told you that they went to the other world. Lydia told you they left this area. The Genros were stupid and scared you. The truth is that the Nagual and Genaro went through that crack." For some reason, undefinable to me, her statements plunged me into profound chaos. I had felt all along that they had left for good. I knew that they had not left in an ordinary sense, but I had kept that feeling in the realm of a metaphor. Although I had even voiced it to close friends, I think I never really believed it myself. In the depths of me I had always been a rational man. But La Gorda and the Little Sisters had turned my obscure metaphors into real possibilities. La Gorda had actually transported us half a mile with the energy of her dreaming. La Gorda stood up and said that I had understood everything, and that it was time for us to eat. She served us the food that she had cooked. I did not feel like eating. At the end of the meal she stood up and came to my side. "I think it's time for you to leave," she said to me. That seemed to be a cue for the Little Sisters. They also stood up. "If you stay beyond this moment, you won't be able to leave anymore," La Gorda went on. "The Nagual gave you freedom once, but you chose to stay with him. He told me that if we all survive the last contact with the Allies I should feed all of you, make you feel good and then say goodbye to all of you. I figure that the Little Sisters and myself have no place to go, so there is no choice for us. But you are different." The Little Sisters surrounded me and each said goodbye to me. There was a monstrous irony in that situation. I was free to leave but I had no place to go. There was no choice for me, either. Years before Don Juan gave me a chance to back out, I stayed because already then I had no place to go. "We choose only once," he had said then. "We choose either to be warriors or to be ordinary men. A second choice does not exist. Not on this earth."